It's crazy how quick time goes. I think talking to Coach Holmes, I made him feel even older than I currently feel, given that it was 16, 17 years ago or something like that, whatever it is, that I was kind of sitting in the same place as you guys are today. And it's a wonderful privilege for me to come here and speak with all of you. You guys are, the most talented, amazing young students that there are, and you all have wonderfully bright futures. And I hope that in coming to chat with you guys all today, maybe I can impart some of my experiences in the last number of years since leaving high school and moving on to the professional world, and hopefully maybe you can take something with you and help you on your pathway. I'm a really big believer in knowing where you've been, and I'm going to just kind of move this way a little bit and make my way around the courtyard, but I'm a really big believer in knowing where you've been so that you can know where you're going. And so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself beyond just some of the headlines maybe that Coach Holmes went over, and tell you a little bit about why I love sport and why I've dedicated a life to working in sport. First and foremost, I was an identified student as a kid. Very early in elementary school, I was identified with learning disabilities, ADHD. I was hyperactive. I'm still hyperactive, which is why I'm going to walk around the whole court the whole time here and not sit still. My wife laughs at that, who's sitting here, because she has to deal with it every day. But I had some challenges as a student. Being a hyperactive and not being able to sit still in your chair doesn't really work so well in the classroom. And but it helps on the playing fields. It helps being hyperactive when it came to the playing fields. And playing sport for me, allowed me to focus and concentrate, and gave me the opportunities to achieve my potential academically. I went from someone who was in learning resource to someone who had a place at one of the most prestigious universities in our country. And I was able to learn and teach myself about how to work hard and how to build my weaknesses into strengths and allow myself to be successful in other areas that maybe some people wouldn't have thought would have been possible maybe early on. And certainly having unbelievable teachers, two of which actually are sitting right here, Coach Holmes and Coach Tona, guy that both at Barton at the time. It's weird to call it Nora Henderson until the building's gone, but those sorts of people were critical in allowing me to be successful and realize our potential. And I think so many of you probably have similar experiences with great coaches and mentors in your lives that have been able to support you along your path. So to say sport was critical for me in my youth and growing up would be an understatement. It absolutely was essential. I went on to Queens, and I continued to play two sports at Queens. I played football and ran track and field the entire time that I was there. And early in my academic career in university was a challenge, and very much like elementary school and high school, worked my way through it and kind of figured it out and really got pretty good at it by the time all was said and done. And during that time, I was playing football, as you know, and I was never really thinking about having a professional football career. In fact, I didn't even start playing football until grade 12 of high school. And Coach Holmes was the coach at that time, and I was a junior hockey player before that, and we had really great football at Barton back then. We won 9 championships in the 90s, including our last one, maybe I think that school maybe ever won, or at least in the A division ever won. And I had a lot of great friends that were on the football team and always bugged me to come out. And so I got tired of hockey, one training camp, and said, forget it, I'm going to go play football. And I went and played football the next day, and that led to Queens, and a school that I never ever would have imagined going to before or even thought about. And what that meant was it put me on a path that I maybe didn't have set out for myself originally. And when I got to Queens, that was just about being the best athlete I could be in university. I wanted to go to win a Vanier Cup and go to the national championships in track and field and those sorts of things. And some of those goals we achieved, and some of the goals we didn't achieve. But I never had a thought of playing football professionally beyond that. And it really wasn't until my third year that I started to think about it. I started to get a little bit of attention, and the talk about this being a possibility kind of came up, and I said, okay, well, maybe I'll give this a go, and I'll see if I can make this a reality. Really put a plan in place to focus real hard on it for the next year, and long and the short of it was I was drafted and ended up spending my entire career in Toronto. I don't say that too loud, being a Hamiltonian and in the city of Hamilton. I've certainly seen a lot of abuse over the years being a Hamiltonian playing for the hated Double Blue, including my own grandfather, who once came to his first Argos game ever in Toronto, playing the Tiger Cats, and sat in the Argo family section next to my wife, wearing his Ticats hat and jacket, cheering for the Ticats while his grandson was playing for the Argos. So, needless to say, I wasn't necessarily all that popular with friends and family, but I was, it's all about who pays the bills as you get a little bit older. So, I was lucky to get to have a football career, because at the end of university, unfortunately, a lot of kids, I had no idea what I wanted to do long term. I'm thinking about grad school, and I have no idea. And, it was lucky that I got to play a sport and get paid for it, because it gave me a little extra time to figure out what I wanted to do. But with a great supporter at home in my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, was very adamant that I figure out what I wanted to do beyond football, because unfortunately sport is not a lifelong career. Playing in sport is not a lifelong career. And you could be one play away from your playing career being over at any stage, whether it's be high school or university or professional sport. And so she challenged me to really think about that and think long term about what I wanted to do. And so my first year I went back to school and did some more schooling. My second year I dabbled in a whole bunch of different things and just kind of focused on football. And so she kept on me, and so I got some really great advice finally. And Michael Pinball Clemens told me, you know what, Bryan, just figure out what you love to do, what you're most passionate about, and just make it a job. Well, holy cow. So simple, but never more truer words have been said to me in my life that created a light bulb moment. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, what do I love to do? I love sport. Well, I'm not going to be able to play forever. I've been playing a couple years already, and quite frankly, after 3 seasons, have passed what the average life expectancy is for a professional football player. And I didn't really want to be a professional coach. Coaching's great, I'll coach my kids and that sort of thing, but I didn't want to be a professional coach. Well, maybe working in the business of sport is it. Maybe that's what I should do. And so I cold called a bunch of people. I cold called Therese Quigley down at Mac, and I cold called a whole bunch of people. And you know what? A bunch of those people responded, and they set meetings, including Therese. And I went down and I met with some people, and I started to learn about what it meant to potentially work in sport outside of playing or coaching. And one of those meetings turned into a job. And I started working at HWDSB Athletes. And I started working there and playing, and I spent 5 years working full-time and playing full-time. And it was a big sacrifice. And I think a lot of us probably know that being an athlete is as much about sacrifice as it is anything else. You've got to sacrifice going out at night with your friends sometimes. You've got to sacrifice going to the movies, watching TV, whatever, because you got to do your schoolwork, you got to go to practice, you got to train. And this was a sacrifice too. I had to work 8 hours a day, I had to train full time, and it wasn't easy. But what it did was it set me up long term. And it set me up long term so that when it came time, I could make the decision to go out on my own, because more friends of mine than I can count, the sport was done with them far before they were done with the sport. And after 7 seasons in the CFL, and quite frankly in the middle of a contract and playing some of the best ball I'd played in my career, I decided to retire. Once again, thanks to my partner to show me that it was most important that I take advantage of these things that I had put in place. And so I decided to retire and take on my full-time career in post-football. Because the reality was, for me, football was great. It was a wonderful opportunity to get started in life, but it wasn't my ultimate goal. It was something I really appreciated having on my resume, but I had far bigger and still have far bigger plans for what I want to do in my career. And so I left the Argos, and it was hard. And it was hard because the Argos turned around and won the Grey Cup in 2012. And I was sitting on the sidelines watching. Now, I didn't know they were going to get Ricky Ray in the offseason. That might have changed things a little bit. But that's what had happened. And despite getting a couple phone calls throughout that season to come back, I kind of stuck to my guns and stayed with my plan to sit on the sidelines and watch. Well, it was damn hard in November when they were hoisting the cup. But the reality is, a few years removed from that, I've learned that it was more about the journey than necessarily that end destination. I didn't win a Vanier Cup at Queens, I didn't win a Grey Cup in the CFL, but that didn't diminish what I got out of those 2 leagues and those 2 experiences. And the reality is, not long after that, at 31, I became the executive director of Ontario University Athletics. Partly because of circumstance, really happenstance, and partly because of hard work, I got the opportunity to take on a job that I was probably not anywhere near qualified to have. But I was in the right place at the right time, and I had worked hard, and I was given an opportunity to take this new challenge on. At first, it was really a 6-month stopgap. Our board of directors just wanted to keep the ship afloat. I was in the office, had the most experience in the office, and seemed to be capable enough to make sure that we didn't close the doors in university sport in the province of Ontario. Not that that would have happened, but that was a concern. There was a lot of change happening. Well, I had other ideas. I wasn't going to be satisfied with just keeping the lights on. I wanted to take the opportunity to showcase the skills that I had in my toolbox that I didn't think I had showcased yet, to learn and grow and develop and get better and advance my own career. And so I had a great young team at the time. We had 6 people in our office out of a staff of 9 that were in their jobs for the first time, including myself. And we were really eager to show what we could do. So we set out to make a difference with the organization. And we created a new strategic plan, and we negotiated new sponsorship deals, and we brokered a new television deal, and changed our operational structure, and did a whole bunch of things in a really short period of time. And a 6-month stopgap turned into 2.5 years at the helm of that organization, which eventually led to being recruited to come join the executive of basketball and lead basketball in our country. Well, what I want you to gather from that is that I had worked really hard, I'd put a good plan in place, but so much about life is really timing. But the reality is, the harder you work and the more planning that you put in place, and the more that you think about these things, you can start to create some of your own time. And the reality is that someone who'd been in a role for 13 years left while I was there, and that was very lucky. But I was well prepared to be able to take on the opportunity when it arrived. And if I hadn't been as well prepared, I may not have had the same opportunity. And this is not unlike any of the other things that I'd done previously in my life. So that wonderful advice that I got from pinball so many years prior, of figuring out what I'd love to do and making it a career, paid dividends. Because at the end of the day, the hard work was fun. Hard work's still hard work, but it was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoy going to work every day. I commute, we still live here in Hamilton and in Ancaster on the west end of the city, and I drive into Toronto every day, but I love going into work because I love my job. And it's hard. It's hard every day. There's challenges. Really, work is just about 2 things: identifying problems and solving them. That's really what it's all about. And everybody does the same things in life, no matter what you do, whether you work in sport, whether you're a teacher, whether you are a mechanic, everybody works with people. That's number 1. Everybody uses email now, everybody makes presentations, whether it be formal or informal. Everybody works with Excel and those sorts of things. The only thing that changes is the subject matter, the topic. And so for me, sport was the subject matter that I wanted to work in. And so I would challenge all of you guys today to think about, as you move forward in the next stages of your journey, what it is that you love to do, what's passionate, what drives you every day. And figure out those things. And it doesn't necessarily need to be sport. Maybe you love sport, but it's not necessarily something you want to work in for the rest of your life. But maybe it's competition, being part of a team. Maybe it's a challenge. You can find all of those things in so many walks of life. And so I challenge you to do that, and then to be aggressive, to take the steps, to go out on a limb, to figure out how to make it a reality. Call people, talk to everybody you can about, and learn as much as you can about the directions that you might want to be going. And if you do that, well, you're going to have an awesome, awesome time for a lot of years until you retire and get to go spend all of your time on a beach somewhere.